Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Are there any items that any of the trustees wish to remove from the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Carapas,
Aye.
Trustee Rogan,
Aye.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
and Trustee Miller.
Yay.
The agenda is approved unanimously. Item 4 on the agenda, by the request of Trustee Rogan, is a Boulder County Commissioner, Marta Lochamin, regarding redistricting of Senate seats. You have the floor, Commissioner Lochamin.
Buenas noches. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Maya, for your getting us here on task and getting us ready. Appreciate the invite from Trustee Holly Rogan to join you all this evening, and really the topic of conversation, but certainly we'll open up to discussion depending on your agenda time, et cetera, is about redistricting. And so I just want to say thank you to the trustees for inviting us, for continuing great work, and of course the communication, which is so vital and will be part of our invitation this evening as well. Some of you know that I'm leading the consortium of cities on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, and so Trustee Rogan and I met through that work and have taken time and opportunities to connect in Lyons. I was glad to participate at the 2nd Street Bridge opening and dedication earlier this year, Lyons Chamber events, and a few months ago. More recently, in the outreach efforts for the Community Steering Committee of the American Rescue Plan Act for Boulder County, with a visit to the LEAF event at the Hootenanny. So just great to connect and see a lot of you there in town, in Lyons, on the ground. My name is Martha Lochamin. I'm Boulder County Commissioner for District 2. And so happy to join in with you. I also wanted to thank my policy team staff, George Twigg, who's joining us this evening and will be available for questions, et cetera, in regards to the redistricting and policy matters that may arise. So thank you, George, for participating as well. So just a little bit on the background. This piece of redistricting and the process, obviously the redistricting process itself is a 10-year, or every 10 years, so once a decade, to adjust districts based on the census data. And as we all know, the census, just the process was really challenging around the country due to the global pandemic that was mentioned earlier this evening, in that the moment of silence. In Colorado and in most other states, this is a state legislature process, and so whichever party is in charge of the House or the Senate has the power to draw the district lines. This, creates concerns for folks, and as the saying goes, the voters should pick their elected representatives, not the other way around. And so, just from a background standpoint, what are we talking about? And specific in Colorado, we know that there's the 2 voter-initiated changes to the state constitution in 2018, which were amendments Y and Z that allowed the independent commissions to take over the redistricting process. And that was an effort really specifically to reduce the concerns of gerrymandering and to make the process itself less partisan. And so a number of other states have now enacted similar independent processes. So what does that mean for us here locally, the Board of County Commissioners, as we represent residents, 330,000 residents countywide with the redistricting commission? We, as our policy team, George Twigg and the rest of our policy team, were very active in keeping us informed. We meet every Monday to have conversations, to get updates about what may be happening, to bring issues forward, et cetera, and followed the congressional and legislative redistricting processes really closely. So our interest, of course, was in trying to keep Boulder County and its communities from being split. Our concerns were, what could negative impacts be for our representation in Congress and in the state legislature. And really the protection of Boulder County as a whole community of interest, and using the terminology that's in the actual language, and keep us as a whole political subdivision. So the Constitution requires the Redistricting Commission to take these issues into account when drawing their maps. And so the community of interest provision is really meant to protect regions that have strong ties. For us, as an example, in Boulder County, we share schools. We share watersheds, healthcare infrastructure, transportation, and the other characteristics that stretch from the mountain communities to eastern portions of the county. And so that's what we're looking at when we talk about keep Boulder County whole. And I had the opportunity to go to one of the redistricting hearings, and I think I was on maybe three and a half hours in. In a lot of public testimony, and unfortunately it was a Tuesday evening, so I was hoping to see some other local electeds here in Longmont, but they were all in council meetings, so I was glad to be able to be there and a local voice. So when the initial congressional map split Boulder County in half and placed Western Boulder County in the 3rd Congressional District, the Board of County Commissioners had this conversation with our policy team, and we decided to file comments objecting strongly to that proposal. The final map was approved by the commission, preserved all of Boulder County within the 2nd Congressional District, represented by Congressman Joe Neguse. And as some of you probably have seen today, we have an update just in regards to the map and Supreme Court rulings, et cetera. We'll talk about that a little bit too. But when it came to the state legislative maps, all of the early versions of the state Senate maps preserved Boulder County and recognized its status really as again, back to the community of interest, with the understanding that our county shouldn't be split. And as what then ensued in our conversations with Trustee Rogan was, at the very last moment, the commission proposed a state Senate map, splitting the county and placing Lyons and our other mountain communities in Senate District 15. That, that's a breakup, right, where we've got 86% of that population is made up of Larimer County voters. And so our concern was really that this would severely weaken the voice of Boulder County residents and their representation in the state Senate. And we filed comments again in response, strongly objecting to this proposal, but the commission unfortunately approved it, as some of you all know. So when we talk about, kind of the background, what's happening, how we involved, what's the Board of County Commissioners doing, how's our policy staff involved, et cetera. And as when we were prepping for this meeting and in just getting ready here, was really that's the next piece that we've now got updates on in regards to the state Supreme Court review. But just to kind of walk through the process of it, once the Redistricting Commission approves maps and they were submitted to the state for review and final approval. And based on those concerns, we consulted with our legal counsel and outside counsel to determine if there was any viable path forward for us to challenge the proposed map. And really, that counsel just would be difficult to mount and really extremely unlikely to succeed, because the language that they're looking for is abused its discretion, meaning that the independent commission would have had to have abused its discretion to challenge what was proposed in there. And that's so that, from a legal counsel standpoint, that just wasn't an opportunity. And so reluctantly, we made that decision that it wouldn't be good use of taxpayer resources to pursue a legal challenge that really didn't have a chance of succeeding. And so where are we now moving forward with new maps? Obviously, that was not the outcome we wanted, and that's why we'd reached out and just touched base, and that's why Trustee Rogan sent a note, and I think was talking with other staff and folks there in the community, because we're committed to working in collaboration with our legislative delegation, regardless of party. And we also want to voice what our community members and certainly our electeds, all of you, are asking and seeing from your residents as well. So our guiding principle will always be, again, to advocate at the state legislature for policies that support the needs and hopes and really aspirations of Boulder County residents. And some of these cases might be debated in a partisan fashion. And our hope is to build strong bipartisan support wherever there's a chance to do so that we can get more work done, so that we can work together, so that we can be listeners and responsive to all residents. And so, as we've done in prior years, we'll be developing a county legislative agenda, which we'll share with all of our elected representatives, and including the new senator for this region, as a way to ensure that everyone is aware of our needs and priorities. And so I just want to thank you for inviting us to be here to talk about the topic, to talk about redistricting. Certainly happy to give a little bit of update about other projects that we're working on here in Boulder County, but I want to give folks an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have, and also be cognizant of the time, as I know that your previous meeting got pushed back a little bit. So thank you again, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Commissioner Lochamin or Mr. Twig from Boulder?
Trustee
Yes.
Rogan has her hand raised.
Who
So,
does?
Trustee Rogan.
Oh, Trustee Rogan. Go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm in chambers for the first time, and we're trying to work out how this is happening on 3 different laptops with feedback, so I appreciate your patience. So I have a couple questions. The first question is, when does this take effect? The second question is, how will this practically affect the town of Lyons? And the third question is, any advice you have about ensuring that we get effective representation in the state legislature? And I want to thank you and your staff for all of your efforts during this process. I know it was a lot, and it was a lot of last ditch efforts. So just a lot of appreciation going your way.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for reaching out. I think that's one of the pieces I didn't really speak to, but just for folks to be aware that it was a really last minute, okay, this is what's happening. How do we react? Do we want to respond? And one of the questions asked, like, who else from the region do we need to talk to make sure that we're getting voices? And so there was a lot happening. So I appreciate that. And certainly the conversation with both Victoria and with you as well. So in regards to the question, the effective representation, I think that's one of the pieces of and I just want to reiterate, Boulder County will work with whoever is in that position, as I'm sure you all will as well. The question about how do we get effective legislators? I mean, for those of you who, if you haven't talked about it already, we all have to vote in our local elections, right? I mean, this is right now, this is happening tomorrow. How do we open up communication? That for me is one of the reasons why I said, let's go, let's be present, let's start building some of these conversations, because in this type of an instance, to me, it was really important to find out, what are the other trustees thinking? What are the neighbors hearing? How can we support you all? And we talk about this a lot in the consortium, is for Boulder County or larger cities like Longmont or Boulder, who have staff, who have attorneys, who have access to counsel. How can we support you all? So to me, part of that effective piece is not only just being out there and really looking for candidates who are going to represent all of our values, et cetera, but also how do we build a real communication network so that we're aware and you're aware and we can support how we can. And one of the other questions was in regards to timeline and which piece were you asking? I'm sorry, Trustee.
So who, at this moment, who is our representative? And if it's not, it's December. When does this redistricting take effect?
I'm gonna call on my policy team person, because we just got updates, and of course we're in other meetings earlier, but I don't believe that's affecting the state Senate piece. George, do you want to jump in and help us?
Sure. George Twig, the Boulder County Commissioner's Office. Thank you, Trustee Rogan, for the question. So if these maps are approved by the state Supreme Court, which is fairly likely given their approval today of the congressional maps, these changes would take effect with the 2022 election. So then the senators and legislators who take their seats in January of 2023 would be your representatives. So that would be the point at which your representation would shift to the new maps.
Mayor, you did, I think.
Oh, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I have a question. The portion of Boulder County that was carved out, I guess is the right word, and put into the other state senate district. Do you have any estimate of the population of that portion of the county? I read, I believe that it was Lyons and Nederland and places in between. Is it just that small portion?
And population wise, I don't know. I know we've looked at a few of them in the different renditions, but George, you probably are looking straight at the the numbers.
Yes, thanks, Commissioner and Mayor Pro Tem. And so it's about so this would be Senate District 15 under the new maps 1-5, and there would be, according to the estimates from the Redistricting Commission, there would be 22,000 Boulder County residents in that Senate district out of 160,000 total. So to Commissioner Lochamin's comments around, dilution of the influence of Boulder County and its communities of interest, I think that was one of our concerns, is to be so outnumbered by Larimer County, and particularly I think Loveland residents, that just the dilution of influence was a concern. But yeah, it would be the amount, it would be Lyons, Jamestown, Ward, Nederland, and then all of the population, Allens Park, and then the unincorporated portions of Boulder County in that western region.
Yeah, I understand the concern there, and I'm sorry it ended up that way. But I guess there's another way to look at it, and that is, I think that's still a significant enough number of voters that, I don't know, maybe we become the swing voters that like decide presidential elections. Maybe we're the swing voters that decide that Senate district. So I don't know. I guess I'll put that spin on it. But I do want to say too that I appreciate all the efforts that the commissioners and the staff made at the county level to try to keep Boulder County together. I appreciate still being the county being consolidated for congressional purposes. I think that's very important. We would have hated to have gotten excluded out of Congressman Negus's district because he's worked very well with us, and I think we have a good relationship with him. So I appreciate all your efforts, and I understand the not wanting to pour a bunch of time and money and legal resources into trying to satisfy an abuse of discretion standard. I get that. It's very hard to do, and I'm not thrilled with the result either, but I can't second guess your decision on there, and sitting in your position, I think I would have done the same thing. So thank you for all the efforts that you made. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I appreciate your optimism. We'll all be optimistic. And I mean, right, we have neighbors that we don't necessarily agree on, and a lot of different issues that are transportation, that's housing, that's healthcare and COVID, et cetera. And we are still, as the commission, reaching out and inviting conversations with our fellow neighboring commissioners as well, because just like what you're saying, the conversations are important to build and to work for our residents. As we know, and your situation is similar, I'm sure you've got folks that work and live and cross boundaries every day for work and life and families and et cetera. So I don't know if there's any other questions. If not, I'll just close out. I did want to make sure that you all are aware in regards to the American Rescue Plan Act and the community engagement we've been working on, and had a great turnout actually for the survey from Lyons residents, which made me very happy this morning. I just looked at the initial data. November 10th at 10 a.m. we will have a public meeting to share that information. And of course, on the bouldercounty.org website, you can see that on the advanced agenda. Again, it's November 10th at 10 a.m. and it'll be an update to talk about that process, about the recommendations from the consultant who has been working with partner agencies that also include the Human Service Alliance and Peak to Peaks Housing and Human Service Alliance. So a lot of work from residents and volunteers there in Lyons as well, if you're not aware. So I want to give a shout out to those folks who've been participating with us, who've been working really hard, and would love for you all to join us. And I'm happy to send that over to Mayor or to Victoria to share out that link for y'all to join us.
Are there any further questions or comments for the commissioner or Mr. Twig? I'd like to thank you, Commissioner Lochamin. for attending our meeting and updating us. And to Mr. Twig also, we know how hard you work for us. Thank you very, very much, Commissioner.
Thank you all. Be well. Take care.
Okay, you too.
Thank you.
Audience business is next. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience to address the Board of Trustees on any issue they would like to discuss. Help me out, Clerk Vasquez, if you see anybody. Does anybody wish to address the Board of Trustees at this time?
Mayor, I would like to when the opportunity is available.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Certainly. Dave Hotchmoji, 200 Welch Court, and I'm a member of the Town Sustainable Futures Commission. Good evening, trustees. I'd like to provide my thoughts on two topics this evening. The first topic has to do with Election Day tomorrow and the town's only ballot measure. Measure 2G asks residents to approve constructing a community solar garden next to the dirt jump track in Bone Park. Now, a couple of residents have conflated the BOT's recent decision to reduce the solar net metering rate as being the reason why residents shouldn't vote to approve a solar garden in the park. That to me is a ridiculous argument. As someone who voiced strong objections from the start with how the UEB and the BOT was going about cutting the net metering rate and why, that decision has now been made and we have to move on. Because if we're to have any chance in saving our species from extinction due to our own excesses, developing every feasible local clean energy opportunity, whether it's on an individual or town-owned rooftop or from a community solar installation, must be part of an all-the-above adoption strategy. Our energy provider, appropriately named Mean, says that we can only generate 5% of our electricity locally. Let's get to that threshold as fast as possible and then push that antiquated and backward utility to grant us more distributed generation capacity. And if they don't, let's figure out how to cut our ties with them. This leads me to my last comment. Tonight, you'll be taking up Resolution 105 brought forth by the SFC, which is a declaration by the town that we're now in a climate crisis. By adopting this resolution, Lions will be saying that we understand that our world is being irreparably damaged due to human-induced climate change, that we are committed, like thousands of communities, scientists, and those world leaders in Scotland now for the UN Conference on Climate Change, that climate change is a threat to all life forms and we must have to act, not tomorrow, but now. In closing, as an aging citizen of the world, I no longer have patience for those who deny climate change and think it's a hoax, or that we continue kicking this can down the road, leaving today and tomorrow's kids to deal with the catastrophe we're creating. By voting to adopt this climate crisis resolution tonight, as a town, we're telling ourselves and others that this time we will act in a decisive manner for the sake of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else wish to address the Board of Trustees at this time? Dan Mage, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan Mage, 219 Park Street, and Chair of the Lions Sustainable Futures Commission. And I am speaking on the climate crisis resolution agenda item tonight. First of all, thank you for considering this resolution, and thank you to Mayor Pro Tem Browning for your suggested edits, which we incorporated. Just to make clear, the purpose of putting this resolution forward is specifically to put Lions on a path towards complying with the state's carbon reduction goals. Every community in the state will need to do their part, and we on the SFC are certain that our community can be leaders, not laggards, in this very important work. And I know that there were questions at the previous meeting about details on what exactly this means. And the point is, we don't know specifically what must be done to reach the state's goals locally. though the Lions Sustainability Action Plan of 2014 no doubt touches on many of these pieces, but we need the expertise to refine that plan towards the state goals and in consideration of the tough challenges such as the mean contract. So I ask that you vote to approve the resolution and work with us to bring in the expertise needed to create some tangible efforts for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else wish to address the Board of Trustees at this time? Madam Clerk?
Sir, Ron Ravel has his hand raised.
Mr. Ravel, your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Ron Ravel. I live at 124 Longspeak Drive, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I have come before the board during the audience business segment of the last two trustee meetings held on October 4 and 18 to speak about the Longspeak Drive infrastructure and road resurfacing project, and I'm here again tonight to speak about that project. We began engaging with the town on the project prior to the official launch back in September, and during the course of our dealings with the town staff, we have attempted to obtain information about the details of the project, including scope, timeline, and the short-term as well as long-term impacts the project could have to the Longspeak Drive neighborhood and its residents. And there have been occasions when the town has been willing to engage with us on this project and willing to share information, and that's been greatly appreciated, and we thank you all for that. However, there have also been times when it feels like we have been not fully kept informed about the status of the project. On October 9th, 2021, a meeting occurred on site at Longspeak Drive, and the meeting entailed myself, another Longspeak resident, Aaron Kaplan and Victoria Simonson, and the meeting was called at our request for the purpose of clarifying the town's intentions with respect to the proposed turnaround, sidewalk, and staging area. And we were very encouraged by the openness demonstrated by Aaron and Victoria regarding the different options for the turnaround. But despite holding the meeting a few feet away from what would eventually become the staging area, there was no discussion that day during the meeting of that staging area that was intended to be installed just a few days later. And that was despite our comments regarding our hope that there would be minimal destruction to the open space. But much to our surprise, really our shock, actually, just a few days later, heavy equipment rolled in and on site and bulldozed the natural area. And when we reached out to express our concerns to Aaron and Victoria about this, we learned that even the town didn't know exactly what the size of the staging area would be. Later that month, on October 29th, the town hosted a Zoom update with Longspeak Drive residents, and during that meeting, questions were asked about the turnaround, the sidewalk, and the plans for the remediation of the open space that had become the staging area. We were told that we would receive an update within the next 1 to 2 weeks, and that update did not happen. On October 6th, the Longspeak Drive Homeowners Association held its annual meeting of the membership, and at that meeting, the members in attendance discussed the Longspeak Drive project and voted to draft a list of questions and concerns to be submitted to the town staff and elected leaders. On October 13th, the Longspeak Drive HOA president sent an email on behalf of the Homeowners Association outlining the questions and concerns talked about at the meeting. And that email was sent to town staff, the mayor, mayor pro tem, and all the trustees. And that included a formal request response from the town. On October 27th, having not received a response from the town to the HOA's email, as vice president of the HOA, I sent an email to the mayor, mayor pro tem, the trustees, and Clerk Vasquez referencing the email, October 13 email, and requesting that Longspeak Drive update be added to the November trustee meeting agenda, specifically requesting a response to the HOA's questions and documented in the October 13 email, and an update on the progress of the project overall. A couple of days later, I had not received a response to that email, so I sent a follow-up email. And at that time, Mayor Angelo got involved. And Mayor, I want to thank you very much for your efforts on that day, because that was the first day that I felt we made any progress with this. So thank you very much. You prompted a response later that day to at least some of our questions that was delivered by email, and we certainly appreciate that update. But despite numerous attempts to understand what is happening with critical components of the project, how decisions are being made and by whom, and how residents of Longspeak Drive can be and remain engaged, we're still in the dark regarding some parts of the project. And we have learned through discussions that apparently are occurring that that the project is now potentially experiencing budgetary issues and problems due to unanticipated parts of what's been discovered so far. And in an effort to address the communication breakdown that has occurred over the past month, and to provide what should be full disclosure and transparency, regarding a capital project led by a governmental agency, or the town in this case, we request a formal update from the town, and that update should include. We would request that include a response to all of our questions documented in the October 13 email sent to all of you, as well as an update based on what has been learned over the first 6 months or 6 weeks of the project. Since the project has been launched, including the impact of any budget problems that are known by town staff or elected leaders, and what those budget issues could have to the project scope, completion date, and post-project remediation. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else wish to address the Board of Trustees at this time? Madam Clerk?
No, sir, I don't see any other hands raised.
All right, then we'll move on. Sergeant Christ is not in town this week. Madam Administrator, do you have any updates that he may have communicated to you?
The only update he communicated to me was that they were very pleased with the spectacular event and the Rave to the Grave event by LCF that really went quite smoothly, and no concerns.
Thank you. We'll move on to trustee reports. Trustee Watt?
Good evening, everyone. Just a brief report for tonight. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude for the budget workshop we had earlier today. I thought the information that was put together was quite helpful for our discussion, so I appreciate that. As far as the report, the Planning Commission met last Monday evening, where we went over a very robust current development update, and I encourage those that are questioning whether we need a full-time planner or not to look at that development update and see some of the projects that are pending or in development currently. In addition, we reviewed the workshop that was held with the Board of Trustees. But most importantly, we went through the Lions Thrive comprehensive plan update, and the first of some engagement sessions with business owners are occurring now. And there's actually a great flyer that has the community engagement plan. It's a couple pages long, which shows kind of the timeline of opportunities for the community to engage. That can be found on the town website under the last week's workshop agenda. So I encourage people who are interested in participating in the comprehensive plan, which should be everyone, to engage with those materials. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Browning?
Neither of the commissions that I serve as liaison to has met since the last meeting, so no reports on that. But I do have two things I would like to put under the record. First, to follow up on something that I believe Trustee Lowell has mentioned at least twice, and I have seen no action on really, is that we have a new parking ordinance that will take effect, I believe, in January, and the importance of communicating how that will change parking requirements and limitations around town to local residents is important. It's now early November, getting close to the holiday periods, and I had expected to see something by now to remind people what's in that ordinance and to suggest steps to them to prepare for how it may affect them. And in that regard, I would appreciate another follow-up as to whether there will be a private sector option for RV parking. So that's my first point. Secondly, as a follow-up to something that the board did, either a month ago, 6 weeks ago, maybe, we passed a resolution requesting Boulder County Open Space to open discussions with town representatives about a connecting trail between the town and Hall Ranch, and off-highway connecting trail. And we directed town staff to work with Boulder County to open those discussions. I followed that up with the communication to Director Cosgrove and Town Administrator Simonson on something that was suggested, I believe, by Boulder County during our discussions of that resolution, and that is a possible site visit at the Hall Ranch to look at the potential trail options there. I heard back from Director Cosgrove, and I think that's something that's still being worked on, but because of the approach of winter, it would be better to try to set that up before the potential path gets snow covered rather than after. So I would ask that that also stay on the list of future action items, which is, if we're going to do a site visit on that potential trail location, let's see if we can get that scheduled while it's still possible to walk up the ranch road that exists. It's the most likely possible trail route. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Miller?
I don't have much. Housing and Human Services is meeting next Monday. But I highly suggest everybody get their booster shots because COVID is awful. I just got done with that whole mess.
Trustee,
We just lost your volume, Trustee Miller.
we can't hear you, Trustee Miller.
I know my internet's not stable either.
There you go. We can hear you now.
Okay. I'm working on getting Attorney Dittman some information for the rental, long-term rental permitting stuff that he requested. Found some fascinating information. Denver just passed laws on that for permitting, so for safe housing. So that's exciting. And Boulder, City of Boulder also has it. So I will be getting that to you shortly.
I appreciate that.
That's all I've got.
Thank you. Trustee Caravas?
The UAB did not meet in the last meeting. Chair and members are out of town. A new meeting, or the current month's meeting, is scheduled for the 3rd, which is this Wednesday at 4:30. That's it at this time.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Rogan?
Thank you, Mayor. Yep, the EVC met, and we are scheduling to meet with DOLA for the Main Street program. They want to meet with the EVC. We reviewed the commercial design guidelines, which got, excuse me, a thumbs up from everybody. I had lunch with the soon-to-be former mayor of Boulder, Sam Weaver, who told me that the North Sky Trail is ready to go. So that's exciting. And then, excuse me. So I'm still curious about the small cell tower in front of Eagle Canyon and what actually happened there, why it was taken down. The residents, excuse me, do want to have a public meeting. So I'd like to advocate for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Lowe?
Thanks, Mayor. The Lions Ecology Advisory Board met on October 26. We had a rather lengthy workshop at which they set their objectives for 2022. One of those objectives was revising the woefully outdated Sustainable River Corridor Action Plan. About 60% of that document no longer applies since our flood restoration work has been done. So that's got to be rewritten. They'll also begin a companion, what's euphemistically called upland plan, which would cover anything outside of the riparian areas. And they're going to queue that off some of the comprehensive plan maps that are going forward. They're going to continue to guide and refine perhaps refine some of the weed management policies and continue to hold and expand their outreach. As you recall, the Ecology Advisory Board used to have 2 events every year, usually movies. We hold them at the Farmette or at another location. We're going to try to revive that once this whole COVID thing gets settled. There was an issue that came up. They asked me to pass it along to the Board of Trustees, the commissions and the mayor. They wanted to remind the board that the Ecology Board has as their, as pointed out in the town ordinance, municipal code rather, it states that the Ecology Advisory Board shall review site designs for all ecologically important parcels of land in order to provide findings, report, and make recommendations that uphold the integrity of the environment in the town while balancing the desire for development, recreation, and economic vitality. This came up in particular because they were not consulted on the solar array. They thought perhaps they should have been asked to weigh in on it. I also note, and they also noted rather, that the fire mitigation proposals going forward, a lot of that involves potentially environmentally sensitive areas. So they would like to have a hand in those fire mitigation efforts, just to weigh in on them. There was a CMEX meeting that I'm the representative to. I didn't attend it. I got caught in that damnable South Boulder traffic and didn't make the meeting. However, the notes from the meeting, I'll pass along to you, that at each of the succeeding meetings, we'll be discussing some of the goals of the town that CMEX can assist in, either monetarily or through their expertise. They specifically mentioned the Ecology Board, the Sustainable Futures Committee, but I would also invite any of my fellow trustees or the mayor, if they have any ideas that they would like to see brought forward before CMEX, that they pass it on to me and I'll bring it up at the meetings. Finally, the last thing, this is kind of in the way of a complaint. I know Director Cosgrove is on the call here, but for the last, or at least the last 2 months, maybe 3 months, on our daily walk, my wife and I and the dog have been going over the pedestrian bridge at the north end of Bone Park. And we note a number of split and broken boards on the decking there that are woefully in need of replacement. I see where Public Works has put cones on those boards to keep people off them. I don't know what the holdup is. They need to be replaced. They're dangerous. I'm reminded of the conversation I had with Attorney Dittman some time ago about if a town is aware of a hazardous condition and does not remediate it, that perhaps it opens the town up to some liability if somebody is injured on that. So I would just urge Director Cosgrove to get those boards fixed as soon as possible. I don't know whether it's a material problem or a staffing problem, but sooner or later, somebody's going to go through them. So I hope that gets taken care of. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. And I want to thank the Ecology Board for their letter in regard to the Martin parcel. I think they came from the place where they're supposed to come from. You don't want to take every single piece of dead wood out of there, because that could really upset the natural balance. So I appreciated that letter very much, and the fact that we have so many birds that have been documented in that particular area. The Student Advisory Commission met. They discussed soliciting younger members to become involved, because all but one of them are seniors and they don't want the council to lapse. So they talked of 3 or 4 different ways to solicit new membership. They're going to upgrade the town website because the picture is about probably at least 2 or 3 years old, and all the names are outdated. Sergeant Christ attended the meeting, and it was wonderful. He probably spent a half hour speaking to the students about traffic ideas, restorative justice, had an in-depth discussion on graffiti, and wanted the members to spread the word in school about what a drag that is, basically. They want to each participate in commission or committee meetings. They spoke about EVC, ecology, and all the other commissions. So expect a student to become involved in those commissions. There was a discussion of CEMEX because 2 of them participate in those meetings, and a third person wanted to, and I got the permission from the director at CEMEX to allow that. They talked about filling out the surveys on the comprehensive plan. And let's see. Oh, yeah. They want to discuss extending park hours in the summer because the park closes a little bit early for them. It's still light. And they were wondering if they could perhaps discuss extending the hours that the parks are open, at least on the weekends. The SFC met. It was a very in-depth discussion. I think the most important thing that came out of that discussion was talking about what we would do with our grant from Boulder County, and the fact that we would like to solicit the help of a subject matter experts on helping to electrify the town, expand renewables. We talked about other programs that we could get grants for in regard to stations to recharge cars. It was a very informative meeting. It was really wonderful. That's all I have. In regard to boards and commissions, I'll make 3 mayoral appointments tonight. Thomas Delker to Park and Recreation Commission, Sarah Lorang to Lions Historic Preservation Commission, and after reconsideration, because I was admonished, I was kindly admonished by the liaison to the Economic Vitality Commission, and also asked to reconsider by the Mayor Pro Tem. I'll appoint Grace Barrett to the Economic Vitality Commission. I think it's important for the mayor to listen to the trustees. I've stated over and over and over again that for all intents and purposes, we're equal. So when you disagree with me, you let me know. And it's incumbent upon me to listen. And I would just suggest that you do that, please. Madam Clerk, could you please read the next item into the record?
Yes, the next item is under Boards and Commissions, Parks and Recreation Commission. They will provide an update from the commission.
Okay. Who will make the presentation?
Hi, trustees. This is Chris Cope. I'm the vice chair of the PRC. I am prepared to go over the Second Avenue safety recommendation, but as far as other updates from the commission, I am not aware or prepared to do such.
Go ahead then with your presentation on Second Avenue, Chris.
Okay, well, I want to thank all of you for your time. I know you're busy with budget and all kinds of other things going on, so I'll keep this as quick as possible. I kept in mind something Trustee Waz always said, the recommendations in the packet, so I'm not going to just read it to you. If y'all haven't read it, please try to do so later as you have time. So I want to start by saying that the area around Second Avenue Bridge and Bone Park, it's simply an amazing job by the trustees and the staff. Over 8 years, recovery, pandemic, I think everybody did just awesome work. I think it was all by the book. I don't think there was any mistakes. I think we all made the best decisions we could at the time with what we knew. So again, just outstanding work. It's beautiful around there. We all wanted that to happen, and it has. But with any project, after work is done, you look at it with a new perspective and you see where things can possibly be improved. And with the sight lines, the grading of the bridge, 300 parking spaces will come online with the Second Avenue trailhead. Off-street parking has become a little bit exacerbated by people wishing to avoid park fees. Some of us, Veronica Gaia and myself in particular, worried about the safety of park users and neighbors on both sides of the bridge. So we took our concerns to the PRC, and we hashed out the recommendation in the packet and passed it unanimously. I should say every neighborhood has tricky features that can be hazardous to unfamiliar drivers. I've got a luge course basically in front of my house at 340 Vasquez, and most of the time I'm quite amused to watch it. But I think what makes this area a little unique is the cut-through traffic. I think a lot of tourists and locals, myself included, go through that area to bypass downtown traffic. And I think there's a lot more unfamiliar drivers there than in other neighborhoods. And I think it's very easy with the current situation there to carry too much speed into a potentially congested area without even realizing it until it's possibly too late. And this happened to me also. So the PRC would respectfully ask the trustees to consider a new traffic study of the area. After the Second Avenue trailhead is complete and during peak tourism season, and possibly overlap, I mean, in engineering parlance, we call this steady state conditions. So it's going to take a while for that area to reach steady state conditions. And getting funding for the study, picking the traffic engineer to do it, the actual length of the study covering, the times of maximum traffic or conflict, that's a year. And then conclusions of the study, it's 2 to 3 years before a study can be adequately completed. As we've learned with what happened near U Pump It with the stoplights at McConnell 66, it's not necessarily getting CDOT to do a study, it's getting them to do it at the right time. And that's what's really important here. So in the meantime, what the PRC would like for the trustees and staff to consider is a temporary, inexpensive, quick fix that might help until a proper study is concluded. And that would be 2 more stop signs and crosswalks in both directions around those stop signs to make it into a 4-way. So that's pretty inexpensive, pretty easy, less than $5,000. It could easily come out of the PRC's, the Parks Fund, as would rightly, I believe, the study should come out of the Parks Fund. It might improve safety, and it might improve safety in the meantime until a proper study is completed. So that is the nature of our recommendation. On a personal note, I will say that when I first went down there and saw the completion of the job, I was very alarmed at the situation that I saw at first. And I had visions of cars doing Starsky and Hutch-like maneuvers into hordes of people and bikes and skateboards. I was wrong about that. And I am thrilled to be wrong. And I pray to God that I continue to be wrong. But I would ask, in the case that I might be right sometimes, that we would consider this simple Band-Aid. And one more thing I would like to close with is those neighbors down there on both sides of the bridge, they have been through a lot over the last 8 years with the flood recovery, with all the constant construction, construction equipment beeping all the time. Some of them actually have experienced real health impacts from all that stuff going on down there. And so this could help provide them some relief as well. So again, thank you all for such awesome work down there for the last 8 years. And thank you so much for giving us the time to speak tonight.
Thank you, sir. How would the board like to proceed? Are we going to listen to a presentation and not address any other concerns? I don't think that's proper. I understand that it's a safety recommendation. Would we like to make comments on it? I can open up a comment in regard to this issue if the board would like to comment further. Are there any? Trustee Rogan?
Yeah, thank you. I'll comment. Chris, thank you so much for being here tonight and for talking to us. I share those concerns. I think a traffic study will absolutely be warranted at the right time. In the meantime, I'm not convinced that stop signs are a way to go simply because of the slope of the bridge. I'd be afraid that people actually wouldn't be able to stop if it gets icy. But I would like to explore what some inexpensive speed bumps might cost and whether they can help slow the traffic. I know that you can buy portable speed bumps, so perhaps they can be used in other areas of town as well, but I think it's definitely worth looking into.
Trustee Miller?
Yes, I have had those same concerns myself, especially with a young child who crosses that bridge by himself, even though I try and get him to stay on the sidewalk on his bike or skateboard or whatever. I have seen more than one car, truck crest that top and a child being on the road and being very scared that they were potentially going to be nailed by said vehicle, and not without them being seen because of the height of the bridge. So I feel like there's something that could be done. I'm not sure what. I think speed bumps, the movable speed bumps, I think are an option. They're not very expensive. We've been looking into them for a very long time. At one point, I thought we were going to purchase some for Evans Street potentially, and High Street as well, the elementary school area, to slow that part of town down. And I'm not sure why they never got purchased. So I think we should buy some of those for sure and look into traffic study as well.
Further comments? Trustee Lowell?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Chris and the Parks and Rec Commission, although I'm not sure we need to pay for a traffic study. I think it's pretty self-evident that we need a four-way stop sign there between the Bone Park traffic, between the recycling center traffic, and as Chris pointed out, the normal cut-through traffic on Second Ave, which is supposed to be 20 miles an hour, but I can tell you nobody goes 20 miles an hour there. I would be in favor of installation of stop signs in either direction, striping of crosswalks, and seeing how that goes. I understand Trustee Rogan's concern about icy roads and not being able to stop at the stop sign, but I think the grade there isn't all that dramatic. And once you crest the bridge, there's, by my own estimation, there's probably about 250 feet of stopping area from the top of the bridge down to the proposed stop sign. So I would just be in favor of putting in a four-way stop sign there with the striping.
Any further comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I heard the PRC's discussions of this on more than one occasion, and I appreciate their concerns. There have been a lot of time, attention, and money devoted to this area of town for the last, I guess, 8 years, really, but certainly the last few with the Second Avenue bridge construction, and now the drainage improvements and that sort of thing. At some point, I think that boards of trustees need to be able to rely on our town staff, in particular the town engineers, to scope out those projects and determine what's necessary, and including telling us where they think, additional traffic studies may be warranted. Look, the reality is we are a town where two major highways intersect. We're extremely crowded in the summer. There are problems with cut through traffic, but we can't put a stop sign and painted crosswalks and warning signs and speed bumps and flashing lights at every intersection in town. We just can't do it. In fact, you get to a saturation point, and I'm afraid you would have almost a negative effect if people, if they have to stop time and time again going down streets, they tend to speed up in between stop signs. I don't see the need for a four-way stop there right now. If the future board wants to fund a traffic study, that's good. If the town, is something I wish the town staff and town engineer will keep an eye on. There are existing stop signs at the entrances, at the exits from the park and the recycling center. There's a painted crosswalk with warning signs crossing, and there are warning signs on the crosswalk for pedestrians. I just don't think we can implement intersection by intersection, spot by spot, multiple traffic controls all over town, because there's danger spots everywhere. There's probably, I haven't counted them, 9 or 10 crossings of Highway 36 and Highway 7 within town limits. We simply can't put everything up at every intersection. There's crosswalk danger and car speeding danger literally all over town. I don't think this is the highest danger spot in town. I'm not in favor of a four-way stop at this point. It is something to keep an eye on, but I think what's there is sufficient. There is a grade down off the new bridge. Everybody got used to the last bridge being flat, which made it a flood hazard. The crossing, the grade on this bridge is not severe. There were expressions of concern about skateboarders regarding it as a nice ramp to go down. It's not a very good skate ramp. It's not steep enough, and there's too much flat area at the bottom of it. There's a lot of steep streets on town that I've seen skateboarders go down. Some of them are they're very skilled, in particular at going down like Vasquez and Horizon and continuing on through the intersection down Steamboat Valley. Pretty impressive what they do. It's dangerous. As my kids were doing it, I'd tell them not to do it. But I don't think this is the most dangerous spot in town, and I'm willing to rely on all of the effort and planning that went into this area, and we'll keep an eye on it, but I'm not in favor of a four-way stop at this point.
Comments? Trustee Caravas.
There we go.
along with what Pro Tem Browning indicated, the need for stop signs on either side of a bridge, because there's already some at the four-way stop on the north side. Coming off on the south side, there's 2 private driveways, which the driver's manual, most states, you have to stop anyway. We have stop signs at the park and the recycling center. And the law says they have to stop and yield the right of way to vehicles. Vehicles are supposed to yield the right of way to pedestrians. We have flashing signs now in lines crossing the highways. We have signs that say yield the traffic on 5th Avenue and 36th going down. And a lot of people don't pay attention to that. They don't pay attention to a lot of pedestrians in other areas of town. That's that individual. There's a reason there's laws in the books. Putting more stop signs up. We've had previous mayors, previous boards want to stop putting signs up. We have so much signage in town, and they call it sign pollution. The issues, as I've always agreed with, I think our staff and our engineering departments, UEB, they have looked at these issues. The planners have looked at them, boards have looked at them, and it was decided that a stop sign on this bridge was not needed. I'll agree with that. It was brought up that as a pro tem brought up the skateboarders in the past. Yeah, skateboarding in the streets. Yeah, you're right. They go fast and they're good at what they do. I would not advise skateboarding in the streets. And we put a stop sign there. We put a four-way stop sign, and who's going to enforce it? A lot of signs are already ignored in this town, and I've been on the board. I've asked the sheriff's department on rolling stops, so they can ever do anything about it. It's like, no, they don't have time. They're not here. We noticed this summer they weren't in town very much at all. So there's no way to enforce it. I do like it when they put with the sheriff's department, like when they put the little stop or the speed limit sign on the radar. Maybe we need to have more there to remind people to slow down. Stopping along the bridge and when people accelerating at night, they have a loud vehicle. It's just, it can create other issues. I'm fine with the way it is and not putting a sign there.
Trustee Watt?
I'm torn on this. I agree with the signage. I don't see how rumble strips or a speed bump or something could really cause too much damage. I appreciate Parks and Rec looking at this, but I think, I think an overall traffic study, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. And I'm not sure this is the most dangerous thing that we need to fix in terms of traffic, but I just think that we need to have a holistic approach to it, and putting a stop sign everywhere is definitely not the answer. I mean, there's people speeding all through town. So I'm kind of torn. I like the low cost kind of, some paint on the roads maybe, and some speed bumps or something, but more stop signs and so forth. I'm not sure that's the answer.
Well, I know that there was a traffic study done on a multi-million-dollar project. I'm not a traffic engineer. So what I did at the Student Advisory Commission meeting was ask Sergeant Christ what he thought about it. And what he said was, and I'm paraphrasing, but I think I have the essence, that basically you're addressing a problem that doesn't exist. And that was his answer to me. So I think it would be prudent to keep an eye on it. We don't know the effect of the additional parking spaces. And if situations come up like they do with who controls all the roads?
CDOT.
CDOT, they judge improvements to the roads by basically, and I hate to say it, by how many accidents there are, and so, if we see a situation where all of a sudden, and I hope nobody ever gets hurt, but if there's a few accidents, then we're going to have to address it. So I think that we should wait and keep an eye on it. This is my personal opinion, and I rely on Sergeant Chris' answer to me when I asked him mainly. And actually, one of the most horrifying intersections to me is coming down Second from the north and trying to get across the highway with a flashing white crosswalk right there. So, you know, it's true that there are intersections that are much more dangerous. So I think that if I got a feel of the board, I think basically we should keep an eye on it. And just, is that acceptable? Okay. Staff reports, flood recovery update.
Evening, everybody. I'll give you a quick update on flood recovery projects and other non-flood projects that are up and coming. So I'll start with the pedestrian bridge to the 4th Avenue, 4th and Evans pedestrian bridge. We have the invitation for bid for construction drafted and ready to go. We have just a couple environmental items still to be cleared and approved by CDOT. So the holdup's really been just getting all of CDOT's approvals to move forward. So we're really close. I'm hoping we'll get it out to bid this month. So that probably means that we'll get started early December or late this month. The stormwater improvement project that was over near the Bone Park area is 95% complete. We just have a couple items to complete over there and that will be done. And since we were just talking about that intersection in that area, we did add a crosswalk with this project at the entrance of Bone Park, and it crosses over to the entrance of the recycle center area. So we did add crosswalk paint and signs in that area. And I'll also mention that when the concern about safety in that area came up, we did reach out to the town engineer, and they did say a traffic and speed study could be done for about $3,000 to $500,000, or sorry, $3,000 to $5,000, just so that you guys have that information. But so anyway, just a little update on that. But the bridge project did not have a traffic study included with it. The project was to replace an existing bridge to meet mitigation, and it was not a traffic study done with that project. So, and then moving on to backup power. The backup power for the Public Works building, we're just waiting for the generator to come in, and the pad's there, and they're just waiting for the generator. It should be in by December. And then over the backup power for the Eagle Canyon lift station, we're running into some environmental clearance items that we have to go through over there, and working with the city of Longmont for an easement agreement, which I believe might be on this agenda for approval. And then the letter of map revision for the remapping of the floodway and floodplain. We still need to get some numbers together and get some funding for that, but that's on my radar to get to here this month. So that's it for flood recovery. We're really getting down to the last final projects, and we should be completed by March. Well, I take that back because the pedestrian bridge is probably going to take a little longer than that, but definitely next year will be complete, probably by spring. Other projects that we have coming that are not flood recovery, the Broadway, US 36 Broadway Improvement Project. We are awarding design to our town engineer, Murray Smith, which is on the agenda for tonight. And so we'll get going with design here in a couple weeks. and it'll be a project that will start construction next fall. The trail extension, we did post an RFQ, and the RFQ includes design, right-of-way consulting, and environmental clearance. It's all going to be one consultant and one contract. So that is out, it has been posted. So hopefully early December, we'll be able to award that contract and get going with those right-of-way concerns that we have, and start design on that and environmental. And then finally, Black Bear Hole, which is a GoPro project. This is the Black Bear Hole and Second Avenue Trail improvements. That is also still in design, and I'm hoping that's another one we'll get construction awarded before the end of the year and have that completed by May. So that's my update.
Are there any questions for Tracy? Tracy, you said that there was no traffic study done on the bridge?
No, the scope of the project was to replace an existing bridge, and it had to meet mitigation, but that was not part of the scope to do a traffic study.
And how much did you say a traffic study would be?
The engineer indicated to, his email said to do data collection analysis and make a recommendation. It would be about $3,000 to $5,000.
Thank you. Further questions? Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, finance report. Finance Director Eista.
Yes, let me get my slides pulled up here. I am happy to report that we are finally caught up with the finances. So this report is through the end of September. Sales tax continues to be very strong. We are up 31% higher than 2020 and 32% higher than our budget projections. You can see we have a preliminary projection in there, which is actually through October. So we'll true that up as we get everything booked into the GL, but things are definitely still very strong with our sales tax. And then with that October amount, about 62.5% of that can be considered local sources. And then this is just our typical yearly graph that shows the month-to-date collections and how they compare to prior years. This next slide is the revenues to expenditures through September. As you can see, the majority of our funds, the revenues do exceed the expenditures, with the exception of the water fund, which also contained debt service during those times as well. This next slide is the year-to-date revenues compared to the year-to-date budget projections. The majority of the funds revenues exceed our budget projections, specifically general fund and parks, as that's related to our high sales tax, and then also the park related revenues that we're doing very well on as well. The funds that are less than budgeted are the enterprise funds, and a lot of that is the timing of TAP fees and investment fees, specifically related to development. This slide shows the year-to-date expenditures compared to where we projected year-to-date budget would be. The timing, again, of this is, kind of skews things at times, but the expenses compared to budget are typically lower in all of the funds from where we thought they were going to be. So that's definitely a positive thing. You can see some of those, like the water fund, it looks considerably lower, and that's those types of things are typically related to capital projects, and that is definitely the case in this graph. This slide shows our 2021 compared to our 2020 year-to-date revenues, and we are higher in most of our funds. We're only lower in the water fund, and that's related to one-time revenues and tap fees and payments in lieu that occurred last year that are not occurring right now this year. And then we are just marginally lower in the stormwater fund compared to last year. The next slide is similar when we're looking at expenditures. So 2021 versus 2020 expenditures. And we are lower in most of the funds. We are higher in our expenditures in the Parks and Recreation Fund, and I attribute that to just our slow return from COVID and kind of getting opened up back up to those types of activities. And then also the electric fund is higher this year than it was this time last year, and that's mostly attributed to the meter replacement project. And then this slide just shows the attorney's fees that are paid through September. So you can see about 160,000 paid through September. And that concludes my presentation, unless you have any questions.
And the attorney's fees does not include Honeywell, or does it?
It does.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And grants, which we also bill separately too, since those are funded by grants. So that's
Okay.
the all-in number.
Good. Any questions?
A comment.
Oh, Trustee Wong.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You might have been brief that I wanted the number on how much of the sales tax was from local sources versus non-local sources. I think that is a number that I would really, I asked that question because I think it's really important, and I'd like to see it documented instead of just commented. I didn't see if it was in your notes. I apologize, but 62.8% from local sources means that almost 40% of our revenue comes from non-local sources. We've seen tremendous increases, and when we compare 2017, 18, 19, and so forth, not all of those numbers have that. So I think we need to, I harp on this because it's really going to be an indicator in the future of, are these businesses in town generating and meeting the needs of our citizens, or are they continuing to have to buy these services outside of town? So it's not just a number for statistical interest on my part. I think it really is a metric that we should be able to use and consistently evaluate how we're doing, because one could interpret that 40% of the residents' needs cannot be met in town cost effectively, and they're forced to buy things outside of town. That might be okay. I don't think we'll ever get to zero of those needs, but I just think that it's important that we track that number. So I appreciate very much that you brought it up and you had that number prepared. I'd just like to see it kind of tracked, and because of it's not a fair year-over-year comparison because it hasn't been the entire time in that time scale. So I think it just misrepresents kind of the growth that we've seen in sales tax. Thank you.
Sure. I would also like to point out that in the summer months when we have festivals and things like that, that number does increase because we do get a lot of sales tax from festivals. So you might see it increase more in the summer months as well. And then another thing to point out is that I do include sales tax from marijuana as well in the local portion as well.
But it is all just sales tax. It doesn't include any other taxes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Further questions, comments? Thank you, Casey.
You're welcome.
Administrators report.
Good evening, everyone. I'll start with our COVID update. We did have a special call for all the administrators in Boulder County on Friday with Boulder County Public Health. They did see a kind of a surge in cases the 3 days before, and they were starting to get concerned. And so there's not going to be a new public health order, but they are encouraging us to pass the word on to people that, you know, COVID is still here. This month alone in Boulder County, we had 17 deaths. And so they just want to remind everyone as we go into the colder seasons and go indoors that it's, and even outdoors now, if you can't socially distance, you know, you might want to still wear a mask because we're headed into, basically they said our numbers are higher right now than they were at the prime high time last winter. So for us, and our neighbors in Weld and Larimer County, that's where they're seeing the increase, is where we border those two counties. Their hospitals are now full. They're diverting all of their hospital patients out of those two counties. And they are preparing to move to crisis response in our hospitals, as there's about less than 1,000 hospital beds available across the state. So that's kind of the COVID update. Do want to note that in my report, there's a lot of activity happening in November in regard to patching and crack sealing on the north side of town, painting and striping of crossbars and crosswalks and curbs and other things throughout town. Tree trimming has begun for the fall season, and all this will be followed by street sweeping so that all of the leaves and other debris in the street does not end up down our storm drains. So I think you should expect a lot of public works activity for November. After a very, very successful spooktacular this weekend, and I definitely want to thank Kim Mitchell and Lisa Ramsey for picking that up in absence of other staff, and the public works guys for their great efforts to get everything in order. We will be starting our holiday lighting and decorations. So the goal of that is always to try to have it up and ready to turn on the day after the day after Thanksgiving. So had a couple other updates, but I think I'll leave it at that tonight. Any questions for me or comments? Oh, I did want to follow up. There was a couple items brought up during trustee report I'd like to respond to, if I could, please. Mayor Pro Tem Browning had brought up not seeing information yet on the parking for RVs and the new ordinance going into effect. It is actually in the next utility bill and will be in the next several weeks of e-blasts, as well as we're putting together a flyer to actually put on vehicle windshields and things like that so they know personally. I did talk with Mr. Tamburello. He is interested in parking RVs on the South Water, ex-Longmont Water Treatment Plant. He has to put some dirt in there yet, but he thinks he'll be ready by the 1st of December for those who need overflow parking. But he is interested in offering that service. And on that flyer, we'll be putting a contact if they can't find other locations to park. He just asked us to hold off because he didn't know who that was going to be quite yet. So we'll be putting those out specifically on individual vehicles over the coming weeks. Director Cosgrove and I did have a meeting with Boulder County representatives just last Friday. So we will have an update for you. We'll send you that by email so you don't have to wait 2 weeks. And we are scheduling a meeting with Eagle Canyon. I don't have a date yet. We have inquired with their HOA what is the best time and date, during the week for them to meet. So we're waiting to hear back from them on that. And I haven't seen the ecology board letter on the Martin parcel, so I'd love to see that, whoever has a copy of that. I haven't seen
I'll
that.
give it to you after the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. I haven't seen that. And I would also just really, we do have an opening on our board and commission next month. I would maybe recommend that the EAB, before they proceed with a bunch of prioritized plans, maybe run those by the Board of Trustees, make sure we have that built in our budget and make sure they're on task with what the board wants them to prioritize. But we do have an opening for an update at our next meeting if they'd like to do that.
Any questions for Administrator Simonson? Trustee Lowell.
Thanks, Mayor. Administrator Simonson, this may be something better posed to Attorney Dittman, but what's the status on the Keith Bell LVP lots?
Yeah, we have not been able to locate the original warranty deed, and Mr. Bell says he does not have a copy. So we are going to have to we're going to have to create a warranty deed for both parties to sign.
Or reach out. I'm going to try to reach out to the former town attorneys to see if they would have a copy, because it gets very complicated very quickly trying to recreate that deed if it's going to maintain a special warranty deed. So it's not the ideal situation, but we're working on it.
I find it amazing. So like this thing just vanished into the air. Nobody has a copy of it, huh?
I get no one. We have been through our safety deposit boxes where we keep deeds, and it is not there. And he insists that he delivered it with filing 1. And it is, the town clerk has not been able to locate it in any town records. And he says he does not have a copy. So we're going to reach out to Mr. Sampson, who was the attorney at that time, and maybe be hopeful that they may have a copy of it. If not, we will have to create it.
Does a recreation of that deed involve a resurvey? How does that work?
So since it's a special warranty deed, the issue so much is not the survey, it's the title work that's go behind it to say that all the warranties apply and who pays for that title work. Those are my concerns. And so we're going to have to look more into how to basically recreate the wheel 30 years or even more later. But the fact that it's a special warranty deed, you know, the town wants a special warranty, that's the obligation is under the contract, makes this more complicated. And unfortunately, Mr. Bell's attorney at the time has passed. And so we can't reach out to him either. And so our best hope is to reach out to Mr. Sampson and see if he has any records of it, or can say that, yes, Mr. Bell did deliver a deed to the town or not. And there may be an entirely different discussion if Mr. Sampson, he did not deliver that deed. So there's still a lot.
What's interesting is we did find a letter from Administrator Cinnamon, who as late as, I don't remember if the clerk remembers what year that was, that he wrote to Mr. Bell and said, we are still needing a copy of that special warranty deed. And he insists that he turned it in with filing 1.
I think that was in 2008, Victoria, that 8 or 9 that he was asking for the deed.
He wasn't here in 9, so it must have been.
Was it 11?
No. I was here in the end of 09 and it was Karen for a year.
And then it must have been, yeah, I thought it was 8.
But nonetheless, I even pointed that out to Mr. Bell. I said, see this letter, he's asking you for it at that point. So obviously we didn't have it. And he insists he turned it in 1986 before he was even on the LVP. He was the engineer or the civil engineer on it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the effort. Keep soldiering on. It's a giant loose end we need to tie
No,
up.
we need to get it done.
Thank you.
Further questions for Administrator Simonson? Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a quick follow-up on that. I don't think at this point anybody should assume that such a deed exists or was provided, because if I've signed and provided a special warranty deed on a piece of property, would normally expect the recipient of that to record it, which didn't happen because the county still shows this property to be titled in LVP Inc. And secondly, the next year, when I got my property tax bill, my initial reaction would be, wait a minute, I deeded that property over to the town, which is tax exempt. I don't owe this money. But Mr. Bell or his corporation has been paying taxes on this year after year after year for 20 plus years, I suppose. Not a huge,
It's because in the agreement, it says that it's not until the construction of filing 8 that the town will take over that. So he planned to pay for the taxes till we did the final filing.
Okay.
But he said he put it in escrow during filing 1. With the town. So now he's anxious to get it over to us so he quits paying taxes now that someone owns it.
And that was my next point. I would think that whatever may have happened, we could spend a lot of time and effort trying to rigor, but for him to get out from under the tax burden, it seems like he'd just be willing to sign a special warranty deed and get it over with. I don't see why that would be in his advantage to do so. So
he's not. He's ready to sign it. We just have to create it now.
All right.
I think you identify a good point, Mayor Pro Tem, though, in that it's his obligation to provide the deed. We're not 100% whether that happened. I'm worried about the cost of the town for recreating this deed and doing the necessary title work that need to be done to do so. And so there still may be discussions to be had on that.
Further questions for Administrator Simonson or Counselor? Go ahead, sir.
Brandon, based on your statement of Keith Bell's attorney has passed away, do we know, was he just a single nameplate on the door, or is there an actual firm and someone acquired his records? Because they'll have access to them. They should have them.
Based on the email I saw from Mr. Bell, it seems like he was a sole proprietor. That it wasn't, and he's been unfortunately passed for some time. But I know Mr. Sampson, who was town attorney at the time, and so I can reach out to him and see if he has any in his records or recollection of what happened.
Okay.
Further questions? Legal update, Counselor?
Thank you, Mayor Angela. Just a handful of items. I want to follow up on the question that Victoria started to address with from Trustee Rogan concerning the small cell from Crown Castle. It was asked, why was it taken down? And while we're not the permittee again for this facility, I don't know all the details. My understanding is that it was installed in the wrong location pursuant to Crown Castle's permit given through CDOT, which is why it was taken down, and that CDOT does not allow construction the fall through until the spring, and so they can't put it back up. And that is what gave the opportunity to say, well, maybe we can move it across the street. And we haven't yet had that meeting with the residents in Crown Castle to determine whether that is possible or not. And so that's just what we know through secondhand from speaking to Crown Castle, but that's what we know, given that we're not the permittee for this facility. But that's my understanding as to why it was taken down. And so, and as I said, we are trying to plan some sort of a meeting, a public information meeting to discuss any questions. I think town's not trying to hide anything. It's just difficult to understand the town's limited role in this unique situation. So that was the first item I wanted to address. Second, I mentioned in my last report that we were working with TCC Corporation on some unfulfilled warranty obligations. I sent out a demand letter to their corporation demanding that these issues be fixed, as we are running closely to the end of the surety period on their bond. And I'm happy to report that it looks like all those issues have now been fixed after we made them very aware that we were going to pursue them if they did not fix them. And so that is a good example of, something that we did to fix a problem in the town. So I'm glad that that's getting resolved. Next, I wanted to bring up Benita Yoder and that issue. First, some very good news out of the Boulder District Court that we were able to dismiss her lawsuit against the Board of Trustees, essentially, and the town. The district court dismissed her complaint in all counts after we filed our motion to dismiss. She did not, interestingly, file a response to our motion to dismiss. So the court found issued a pretty short order agreeing with everything we said. So that lawsuit is out of the picture now, I should say, which means that the motion to show cause hearing is going to move forward. We're planning on that hearing happening November 19th is the plan. We did hire a hearing officer to hear that. It shouldn't take more than a half day, we were thinking. A very good hearing officer at a very fair rate. So we're very happy to be able to do that. The notices subject to final check by the hearing officer should be going out hopefully very soon. But the plan at the moment is for the hearing to happen on the 19th. And there should be at least 3 weeks for Ms. Yoder to have notice of that hearing. Finally, as you all know, we do have the settlement agreement on the Callahan matter up on the consent agenda today for approval. So, and then I guess finally I should say that the Honeywell matter, there's no update to give really on that one. They're still fighting over who the arbitrator will be between the many parties. No one can agree on who the arbitrator should be. Eventually, AAA, the arbitration organization, is going to have to probably just pick somebody, but it's still kind of those messy procedural stages at the moment. So that is my legal report. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Counselor? Seeing none, let's take a break until 5 minutes after 9, if that's okay with everybody.
Sounds good. Thanks.
like 300 years? Somewhere around there.
One, two, three, four, five. Okay. 6. Just waiting for Trustee Miller.
We need to pull consent item 4, the construction contract, because of general business item 1.
You do what you do it.
Administrator Simonson, can I ask you what those striping pictures were in your report?
Those were the pictures of who's supposed to be, is getting striped this month.
Okay.
Did they not make sense? Did they not come through correctly?
I guess I missed reading that part or something. I just saw the pictures. I'm like, what am I looking at? So thank you.
Yeah, no, it was a description of the green, red, yellow, and blue is stop bars, crosswalk, striping, and curb.
Gotcha.
Okay, we'll start. And Trustee Miller, I'm sure, will join us. Madam Clerk, could you please read the consent agenda into the record?
Yes, sir. Consent agenda item 1 is resolution 2021-112. Resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the third amendment to the professional services agreement with Murray Smith Incorporated for on-call engineering services. Item 2 is resolution 2021-113, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving a mutual release and settlement agreement between the Town of Lyons, Colorado and Dennis P. Callahan. Item 3 is resolution 2021-114, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving an agreement for animal services between the Town of Lyons and the Longmont Humane Society Incorporated for 2022. Item 4 is resolution 2021-115, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, awarding the contract for the Welch Court Sewer and First Avenue Water Line Project to CGRS Corporation. Item 5 are the November accounts payable, and item 6 is the October 18th, 2021 Board of Trustees meeting minutes.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Are there any items any trustees wish to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, I'll call for the vote.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Please, Madam Clerk, he is abstaining on this. There's one item on there that relates to construction on our street. Rather than pulling it and separately voting on it, it was just quicker to abstain from the whole consent agenda. So please show me as abstaining for that reason. Thank you.
thank you. Trustee Rogan,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Yay.
and Trustee Carabas.
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Since no items were removed, we'll move on to general business. Could you please read that next item into the record, Madam Clerk?
Yes, item 1 is Lyons Valley Village request for pause of construction noise for 1 year.
Staff?
Thank you. In your packet was a letter that I received from the Lions Valley Village homeowners and their association. It includes 18 different homes that live, homeowners that live in Lions Valley Village on 2nd Avenue. Their request came up during a board meeting, apparently, where they discussed sustained long-term construction noise and its impact it was having on their residents, the negative impact it was having on their residents, both physical and mental health, from over 4 years of constant construction noise in the area due to the parks and the parking lot and the bridge. And basically, they made a request to me that following the completion of the Black Bear Hole project, which is scheduled for this winter and spring, that they asked that I pursue a 1-year moratorium on non-flood related and non-emergency projects in and around Bone Park. And I do not feel that is in my purview to grant. And then it went on to request that no more than one construction project be scheduled in any given year. And again, I know that I've met with some of them. I've listened to the health impacts it's had, and I'm very empathetic toward that. They were very understanding that they knew most of the flood projects had very strict timelines, that the funding was in jeopardy, but they are requesting a moratorium, and I simply can't grant that. So I wanted to bring this to the Board of Trustees for you to decide if you want to take any action or if you would like to respond to them, knowing that we do have a couple more projects coming up, but it's hard to define by the letter what is in the Bone Park neighborhood, because we do plan to potentially build a solar garden if that passes the election. We do plan to put up a recycling center fence after the Black Bear Hole project, and we do have Summit Housing Project, and technically that is in their neighborhood. It's Lions Valley Park. So I just was not comfortable. I did explain to them that, you know, I have no way to commit to only one construction project a year, nor a moratorium. So I am giving this to the Board of Trustees for discussion and direction, or a response to the Lions Valley Village Association, Homeowners Association.
I'll open it for discussion with the board. Any comments? Trustee Lowell.
Thanks. Well, point Victoria had was that I don't think Summit's going to affect them at all. There may be some trucks coming down second, but by and large, it's not going to be LVV. I really have some sympathy for these folks. When you think about Bone Park Phase 2, the fact that it was delayed for 18 months and they were basically looking at a field of dust blowing in, and then Phase 2 picked up again in the construction and whatnot. We had the Red Gulch sewer. We had the 2nd Avenue Bridge. When I look at the future projects that we might have, I don't think that solar array is going to be a quick turnaround on that. Even once they should they get the grant, I'm not sure that's going to be a quick turnaround. I would support a 1-year moratorium if we can do it. I'm not sure what kind of conditions we would have to attach to it. I think it would probably be something like a 1-year moratorium unless the project is of, I don't know what the proper term would be, extreme importance or importance to the well-being and welfare of the town, that sort of a thing, but I would support it.
Further comments? Mayor Pro Tem.
I too empathize with anyone that has to live with prolonged construction. Like, for example, the people in the Confluence neighborhood who lived with it for 4 or 5 years after the flood. But the simple answer to this is I don't think it's appropriate for this board to start binding the hands of the staff and future boards about projects that need to be done. As the town administrator has indicated, it's been the case probably with most of our projects that the town's not in control of the timing of a lot of these things. Grant timing, when the grants are awarded, when the deadline for spending the funds make a big difference. Contractor availability has been it's a huge issue these days with all kinds of supply chain shortfalls. The 1.5-year delay on the Bone Park Phase 2 was something not within the town's control. The town wanted to go forward, but a state agency wanted to do all kinds of studies that stopped us from doing it. In Lyons, you always have seasonal considerations. There's some projects you can't do in the winter. And so for us to try to dictate to future boards and staffs and also the granting state agencies and whatever, I think is just impractical. For that reason alone, I'm not in support of this, although I, again, sympathize with people. And I should probably just shut up there if I was smart, but I'm not going to. I'm going to add one more thing. While I appreciate the sincerity of the LVV letter, I was very disappointed in it in one respect. The projects that they have identified as causing noise and concerns in their neighborhood, by and large, were undertaken for the benefit of them and their neighbors. The Second Avenue Bridge, which took a long time, prevents flood risk for them and their neighbors. First time I worked with Team Rubicon was cleaning out the basement of Lyons Valley Village after the flood. That community came within a hair's breadth of being wiped out. And what will prevent it from being wiped out if another flood like that happens is the Second Avenue Bridge. The drainage improvements that just got done, those benefited actually a fairly limited area of town. It was their area of town. Didn't do anything for those of us on the north side or even the old Confluence area. That was for their benefit. The improvements that had been made to Bone Park, which the part down near Lyons Valley Village was devastated by the flood, and now it's a beautiful place. That's kind of their backyard, and those redound to their benefit. What was missing from this letter that I was disappointed in is that I'd take this from my mother's advice growing up. When somebody spends a lot of time and effort and money on your behalf, don't forget to say thank you. This letter did not say thank you for all of the time, effort, and millions of dollars that have gone to improve that area of town. And frankly, I was disappointed in it. There's a lot of other areas of town that need a lot of things done. Sidewalks are a disaster on the north side. There's a problematic water line, sewer line on Upper Fifth. There's potentially failing lift stations. There's a Second Avenue that's being patched today. Another patch job is dangerous to drive up and down. But we prioritize this area of town because that's where around Lyons Valley Village and that part of Lyons Valley Park, because it was at greatest risk. A thank you would have been nice, but there wasn't one. That's all I have to say.
Further comments? Trustee Rogan?
Yeah, I have a question. Are the residents aware of the recycling center fence? They know that that's planned?
I don't know that for sure, if they do or not. I would think a couple of the individuals know that from being on different commissions, but I can't guarantee that.
Yeah, okay.
And they may not consider that loud construction noise. That probably is not going to take backhoes and digging.
Yeah. And boy, I feel for them too here, because the trucks going up to Longs Peak have been driving by my house 10, 15 times a day. And it's, and that hasn't been even going on for that long. And it really does fray the nerves. And so I really feel for these folks. And at the same time, I agree we can't bind the hands of a future board. So I'm not sure that we can agree to that. I think that what we can do is when we prioritize projects, keep in mind that they've been going through this. for quite a while now. And so maybe move any projects in that particular neighborhood to lower on the list to give them some time and some breathing room.
Further comments? Trustee Miller?
Yeah, like my fellow trustees, I don't think we can do this. I think there's a lot of areas in town that have suffered for many years with the massive amounts of construction that have gone on in different areas of town. Lions Valley Park construction went on for a very long time. Confluence obviously had their fair share of construction over there. The list goes on and on, really. I just don't see any way that we can really do that. But hopefully they will have, a few months of breathing without construction knocking at the door, and that will suffice for some peace.
Further comments? Trustee Watt?
I'll just quickly say, I agree. I don't think we can do this, but we need to be mindful about all construction projects. I know in Old Town, many of my neighbors would be happy with the sound of trucks paving the roads. So be happy to take on those projects as necessary to alleviate our neighbors' pain related to construction noise.
Further comments? Trustee Caravas?
As my colleagues indicate, I sympathize with everything they've gone through. There are neighborhoods in town that sit higher than them that have heard 9 years of all the noise, because sound travels up in our valley, especially when the wind's not blowing. So noise in those neighborhoods, it's those that sit up higher, even consider red buildings, that the dropping of concrete into steel basins of dump trucks and haulers has been going on for 9 years, from the second the flood recovery began. So it's just not the neighborhood. There's other areas that hear the noise all the time. That's unfortunately a sign of progress. I empathize with them. Something we can do. Can't put the constraints on the future board staff and prioritizing them. Trustee Rogan, to lower on the list. We have a wastewater treatment plant that needs to be rebuilt. We'll be doing that soon. We're not going to prioritize that low. That's going to go up high. So it's going to continue just the way it is. It's unfortunate, but a town that has the needs and the responsibility to the entire town of roads, sewers, water mains, drainage issues, just has to go, and it goes on continuously. It goes on everywhere. It's just, as a small town sitting in a valley, it happens. It's unfortunate. It's too bad. I would like to think, as Victoria Simonson has indicated, that some of these projects that are going to go on in the neighborhood coming up soon should be low impact. No guarantees, but the beep, beep, beep noise, again, is federal government regulations called OSHA. You can remove those beep, beep, beep sounds, but those construction companies get fined and get pushed out of business, can't do work. It's, damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. It's unfortunate. This is just one of those added, harmful aspects of the flood that no one really realized was going to happen until now. Something staff can try, and the future board can try to do its best. But when it comes to getting projects done, and as my fellow trustees mentioned, grant monies, when they come, we got to do something. So that's where I'm at with it. It's something we can't do.
You're muted, Mayor.
I have to mute when Trustee Caravas speaks, or else I get feedback. We should be considerate, but we can't predict the future. And there could be things that come up there could be, you know, a water main or a sewer line like there is on Welch Court that we just have to fix. And so, you know, we can't make an agreement that we may not be able to keep. And as many trustees have said, we can't tie the hands of a future board. And in regard to what the mayor pro tem stated, I just have one word to say, and that's amen in regard to the thank you, because that area has probably received more help and protection than any other area in town. So I don't think we can do this. That would be my opinion as well. So I think you have the direction of a
Thank you all
majority of the
for
Board of
responding.
Trustees, Administrator Simonson.
Thank you. I'll respond.
Okay, could you please read the next item into the record, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Item 2 is Resolution 2021-105, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, declaring a climate emergency which is already impacting our community. This was continued from the 10-6 Board of Trustees meeting.
Staff?
I don't know if Kim is on. Oh,
I'm
there she
here.
is. There she is.
Sure, everything's in your cover memo. There were some changes made, suggestions from Mayor Pro Tem Browning from the October 4th meeting when it moved to a date certain, and all of that was approved by the Sustainable Futures Commission when they met.
Are there any questions? If there aren't any questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move the adoption of Resolution 2021-105, declaring a climate crisis, establishing Town of Lyons' commitment to taking action to address the crisis, which is already impacting our community.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there comments? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I noticed that this was on the agenda for the first meeting of October when we were taking a vacation overseas. I was very pleased to realize that it would probably be done before I got back, and then I got back and found out it was a 3-3 tie, and that it had been deferred till I could cast a vote. So unfortunately needed to be addressed. And I read through the original draft, and there were some things in there that if I had to vote yes or no on the original draft, I would have voted no. But because this, as was pointed out at that meeting, is not really something that specific and binding, I thought there was a chance to try to find a middle ground. And so I took a stab at kind of redrafting the bulk of the resolution. There's a whole string of whereases, and I'm not necessarily agreeing with every one of those, but I didn't see a whole lot of point in spending a lot of board time arguing about whereases in a non-binding resolution. So I just left those as is. And I tried to basically come up with some more compromised language on the body of the resolution. The main thing was that as originally drafted, I believe the resolution would have asked the board to basically commit to do everything in the town's power to address the climate crisis. And that phrase bothered me because there's a lot of things in our power to do that we probably would not want to do or never do. I mean, for just a quick example, it would be within our power probably to construct a wind turbine on top of Tank Hill and connect it to the town's electrical system. And that would, to a limited extent, reduce our, increase our renewable energy. Would it be cost effective? Would we ever get our money back? And would people in town like to see that there? Probably not. It'd be within our power. So that phrase, I propose changing to take appropriate steps to address the climate crisis. And then that would leave future boards a discretion of if it's appropriate to put a wind turbine on top of Tank Hill, they could. If they don't think it's appropriate, they wouldn't, even though it's not clearly within their power. So I tried to basically come up with a compromise. Probably doesn't satisfy everybody. Most compromises don't. I'm pleased to see that it was okay with the SFC. And so as revised, I'm prepared to vote in favor of it as it appears in the packet this time.
Further comments? I think you did a terrific job, Mayor Pro Tem. If there are no further comments, I'll call for the vote.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Rogan,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Yay.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
Harris.
No.
Resolution 2021-105 passes 6-1. Could you please read the next item into the record, Madam Clerk?
Yes, item 3 is discussion and direction on annexation of the Martin parcel.
Staff?
I don't think we have a presentation on this yet tonight, and this was brought up by Mayor Pro Tem Browning.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning.
I think this was discussed briefly at a prior meeting. I don't remember when. And I think I asked the question there, does anyone, staff or board, really see significant downsides to annexing the Martin parcel? And I don't recall that anybody came up with one. I mean, we already own it. Whatever we do with it, even if we just leave it as is, it seems like it should be within the town's jurisdiction to decide what to do with it. If we need to do some fire mitigation work as is proposed, I believe in the budget, it should be us that issues the necessary permits for our property to protect our town, not have to deal with Boulder County because it's still technically within Boulder County's jurisdiction. So I don't see, it seems like it could save us from having to deal with Boulder County on some things we might want to do on the property. One potential downside or controversy, I guess, in annexing any property is I believe that there's a legal requirement that within 90 days of annexation, you have to determine a zoning for newly annexed property. And that can be controversial on some pieces of property. For the Martin parcel, however, we already have an adopted plan, the Dr. Deed Restricted Buyout Properties, Dr. Bott plan, that was adopted with a whole lot of community input, was adopted by a prior board of trustees, and basically says this is going to be used as a largely undeveloped or a limited development addition to our park system. So we're not making that decision tonight or even necessarily when we do the actual annexation, but it seems to me that the potential zoning on this is pretty much preordained unless we decide to jettison the Dr. Bott plan, which, as I said, was adopted after a lot of community input. So this just seems like something we got to do. It seems short, simple, and easy. Annexing it doesn't prescribe exactly what we're going to do with it. We've got the Dr. Bott plan as guidance on that. So why not go ahead and take it into the town limit so that we're the permitting authority basically for whatever we do or don't do on it. It seems like a no-brainer. It's been sitting there for a couple of years now, and I think we should just get it done. Get this. This is an easy one compared to some others in my view. So let's do this. Let's do the easy one, and then we can talk about others that may be present more issues.
Any further comments? Let me recognize Trustee Lowe. Trustee Lowe.
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Browning. Although the requirement that it be zoned after 90 days, I mean, that's correct. but it's a little puzzling considering the dog park sat there since 2006. I think it was finally zoned sometime about 4 or 5 years ago. I would also add that as long as we're going to annex the Martin parcel, then we probably ought to also annex Lot F behind the dog park. And if Attorney Dittman does his magic and Mr. Bell agrees, probably also annex that 42 acres where the L sits as well. If I look at the Boulder County maps, I think that I'm calling it the L lot. It looks like it's connected directly to Lot F. So if F were annexed, then there's a direct connection to the L property. You're shaking your head, Mayor.
It's not true. There's a Ohio ranch land between the L property and Lot F.
Well, we can look at that when it finally gets to the point where the town properly receives it. But at the least, I think Lot F also ought to be considered as annexation along with the Martin property. If we have to go, we have to go to a ballot on these, right? Because they're both over 5 acres.
It's town-owned property, so
yeah,
we would need to do that.
Sorry, Attorney Dittman, what would you refer to?
I believe since it's town-owned property, we wouldn't need to do that.
Okay, all right. That makes it easy.
If you have the permission of the landowner, you don't have to go to the ballot. So it's town owns it, no need to go to the ballot.
The thought was to, as the Mayor Pro Tem stated, to do the easy one first. And we don't have to wait 90 days to zone it. We can zone it quicker than that. And I think the zoning is rather obvious, to be perfectly honest with you. So I think it's going to be a very, very simple process. And I think we should go ahead with it. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I was going to respond to Trustee Lowell's thing about why not go ahead and do Lot F now? And the answer is because Lot F is going to be controversial. It's been, even when past boards have had brief discussions of that, it's ignited, things on Facebook and comments to the board and everything. And if you do these at the same time, what I think should be a fairly quick and easy annexation of the Martin parcel and zoning is going to get mixed up with all kinds of controversy about Lot F. And so I'd like to get this one done. And my personal opinion as one of 7 trustees is then this board should proceed with Lot F during our term. Past boards, including the last board I was on, and I know the board before that, have shied away from taking on the Lot F annexation and zoning issues because of the likely controversy the zoning is going to produce. And so it's basically been kept on the back burner because nobody wanted to get into that fight. It's my anticipation that probably the majority of this board may not, some of them are term limited, some may choose not to serve again, will probably not be coming back. And I think this board is the one that should face the controversy that other boards have not wanted to take on with that property. But I don't want to, as soon as we do this as one step, then the Lot F controversy is going to overwhelm the Martin parcel stuff. So my suggestion to the mayor and in the town administrator and putting on this agenda is let's do the quick and easy one first, and then turn our attention to that one, which is going to ignite controversy, I assure you. So that's my thought. But I agree with you. We ought to take on Lot F. That's been sitting there since I don't know how many years. The mayor would have to tell me. But it's time that got addressed, and I'd like this board to do it, but not quite yet.
Since I was a kid, and that was a long time ago, Trustee Miller, you had something to say?
I was just going to ask Victoria if is the Martin parcel still, what's the flood, what's the floodway? Is it in the floodway 500 year, what 100 year? What is that? now?
Let me look quick. If I recall, it is, I don't think it's floodway. I think it's the 100, but let me open up my flood map and I can take a look while we're talking. Oh, let's see. I'm sorry about that. I gotta put my screen down. It was, there it is. It looks like I have too many screens. It looks like it is, let's see. It does look like I'd say 80% of it is floodway. 20% maybe 100, the 1%. So there's not going to be, yeah, a lot of options on it. Where lot F is out of even the 500, it's totally buildable. Yeah.
Any further comments? Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
I've got a question for anybody, basically on the board in Victoria. Is I know there's issues and has been issues with some of the landowners down there about access and on where actual property lines are from Boulder County and that parcel.
That's part of the discussion we had with them on Friday afternoon, was expressing to them that I made a formal request to them.
Can't hear you, Administrator Simonson.
Oh, really?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I can
Go ahead.
Okay. I made a formal request to the county when they were on the phone with us Friday, or on a virtual meeting, that they have this area formally resurveyed since the flood to make sure that the area they thought was adjacent to Road 69 is still in existence and was not destroyed in the flood. So they did make a commitment that they would, either them or CDOT will get a survey of that area for us once and for all.
I anticipate issues or comments coming from that area as we have in the past.
I do too.
Are there any further questions or comments? What is the direction of the board, Trustee Rogan?
Yeah, I say let's move forward with annexing.
Trustee Lowell?
Annexing and zoning at once, right? That's both.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Trustee Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I would also support the simultaneous annexation and zoning and direct staff to move forward. And I believe it's a resolution, Brandon, that we would need for this, or is an ordinance?
So usually it's a two-step process where it has to go, the PCDC has determined the sufficiency of the zoning, and then there's those. I think it's an ordinance. I have to look to see how you guys have done it, but I think it's typically we've done a zoning ordinance when I've done these in the past. I haven't done one in Lions yet. This will be the first one, but
anyway, I would support directing the staff to promptly take the necessary steps to commence that process, including putting it before the PCDC and then bringing it to the board in whatever legal form is required.
Thank you for that.
Oops, sorry. Trustee Caravas.
I support the two-step option, doing both as soon as we can.
Okay, Trustee Watt.
Support it. Support moving forward.
Trustee Miller.
Yeah, I support it as long as we get that survey done.
Okay, you have your direction, Administrator Simonson. Discussion on future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items any trustees would like to bring forward? Mayor Pro Tem?
This is something I've mentioned before, and I know Administrator Simonson and some of the staff have done some work on it. I would like to have an agenda item so that for really a presentation to the board on how sales tax collection is being monitored for food trucks and wedding vendors. There are a heck of a lot of food trucks now operating in town limits, and maybe they're all paying 100% of the taxes that accrue when they sell food in Lyons. But I really would like to know what ongoing program there is to monitor tax compliance, and not just business licenses. That's one thing. That's really just keeping track of things, but really how we are monitoring their sales tax compliance, because they're competing with local restaurants, and some of the local restaurants don't mind it, and more food options in town is a good thing. But if they're going to be selling food in competition with local restaurants, we need to make sure they're all playing by the same rules. And the same, and the wedding vendor thing, I think, has been looked at, and I think the town staff has met with some of the vendors, the caterers and florists and that sort of thing. But I think those two things go together. But I would just like to have a report and make sure that we have an active, really a proactive monitoring program in place for both of those things.
Any further issues the Board of Trustees would like to bring forward as a future agenda item? None? If you think of any, let us know. Summary of action items. Madam Clerk?
All right. In the workshop, I heard Trustee Rogan say she'd like to get a list of pros and cons of having an in-house legal, but then I think that was shot down, so I'm not sure if to keep it on there.
I'd remove it. I'd remove it, Dolores. Thank you.
Perfect. We do want to schedule another budget workshop so we can follow up on the boards and commissions. A potential site visit for the Hall Trail for Mayor Pro Tem. Town administrator will notify Lyons Valley Village on the board's decision. And lastly, I have proceed with annexation and zoning of the Martin parcel.
Administrator Simonson, anything to add?
To schedule a special workshop, budget workshop between now and November 15th.
Yep, got that.
Okay, maybe I missed that. And then I think I had one more. Of course, taking more action on this parking ordinance, follow up on the Eagle Canyon and the BOCO site visit. Any ideas to Trustee Lowell on CEMEX projects? Replacing those split boards. And special warranty deed. Follow up.
Counselor, anything to add?
We got the Eagle Canyon small cell site meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only thing I had.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
This might be included with the additional budget workshop, but at the workshop, we also talked about, because it is part of the budget, of getting an understanding of the organization of the cultural district and how the LAHC funding would work with the 501c3 and their different sources of funds. We could probably do that at the same time.
Yes.
I think before we vote on funding a cultural district, we need to know how that whole area of town is organized and funded. So
yeah, let's get a comprehensive education on that process. I agree. Okay. Anything else by anybody else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm sure there will be no discussion, so I'll call for the vote, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Angelo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning?
Aye.
Trustee Lowell?
Aye.
Trustee Waugh?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Yay.
Trustee Rogan?
Aye.
Trustee Caravas.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Stay healthy, everybody.
Thank you. Good
Yeah,
night.
good
Aye.
Good night.
Rose, right? He left.